Hello, and welcome to the second Academy for Teaching Excellence podcast. I'm Richard Middleton Kaplan. It is week 3 of the fall 2013 semester, and I'm going to give you a little update on what's been taking place in the Academy this past week and what's on the slate for next week, and then looking ahead a little bit to the rest of the fall 2013 semester. I'm happy to report, in terms of what's been happening, that the multi-use classroom here in the Academy has been getting excellent use. We've had a first-year seminar meeting and a faculty meditation group and some other things as well. And next week we have some other good sessions scheduled, and I'm getting calls all the time about new events to program there. In fact, that room is booked up pretty heavily through the beginning of December, so I hope that you will continue to bring your groups down here. The space in the center, the lounge and resource library, looks like it's getting some use. Every time I walk in there, I see the furniture in a different arrangement, so I'm glad that people are coming down and relaxing and exploring and conversing there, and I invite you to continue to do that. And the computer lab is also heavily booked, so that's great. I'm glad to see the space being used so well. In terms of what's coming up next week, one highlight I'd like to draw your attention to is Dr. Connie Staley on Friday, September 20th from 9 to noon. She's going to be talking about true grit and whether resilience is something that we can teach. I think we've all been struck by the variety of student reactions to perhaps a discouraging grade or a negative test result, and we wonder why some students crumble or vanish and others come to our offices and want to do well. And I've heard so much conversation in recent years about whether the current generation of students has just been coddled and they have a sense of entitlement, and they're used to receiving a medal or a ribbon for every little thing they do, regardless of their performance. They're never told no. I don't know the extent to which those things are true, but if they are, and those are the ways students are coming to our classroom, what do we do? How do we teach them to be able to cope with constructive criticism and use that for growth and improvement? So I think those are good questions, actually, for us to ask Dr. Staley as she talks with us about whether, in fact, resilience is something that can be taught. You'll also notice in the list of professional development offerings that Lauren Salati sent out that there's a Starling session on promoting student engagement and persistence. So there's a connection there. Beyond that, we have been talking about where we would like to go with the rest of this semester. And one thing that emerged from the comments that came out in the orientation week sessions and that we've been continuing to hear is a desire to increase conversation among faculty. So we're going to set that as a goal for fall 2013. A lot of people expressed a desire for us to construct a way for people to talk with others outside their hallways, what some people called their silos, their departments, their divisions, and we can provide a venue and a space for that. And we'd like to know a little more from you about the ways in which you'd like us to shape those conversations, but we will certainly try to do that. So I saw 3 principal ways in which we could increase this that emerged out of the feedback that you've given us already. And the first of those is that we engage in a series of courageous conversations. That is, conversations with each other about things that are difficult to talk about, perhaps we shy away from ordinarily. The suggestions ranged from conversations about diversity to conversations about tenure and whether this is something that actually benefits our students, whether the effects for us are always positive or whether it can perhaps have negative effects on our own growth. There were also proposals for conversations about the extent to which we ought to be teaching in every class in a way which gives our students vocational skills. So those are conversations that often people shy away from. They require some courage and some open-mindedness, and we can provide perhaps a way for those conversations to take place. Secondly, something that emerged very, very strongly was a desire for faculty to find ways to help faculty to talk with each other about our best practices in ways that are not evaluative, but that are formative, and ways to talk with each other to better our practice and to hone the art and the craft and the science of teaching. And I use those three quite intentionally. There is an art to teaching in that, first of all, there's a stagecraft element, an element of improvisation and creation in the moment, and innovation in the moment. And there's also an art in that sometimes in teaching, something magical happens that can't quite be accounted for or always replicated. It can happen within us at our best moments where we have some kind of recognition of what we just did. And of course, it's always wonderful when it happens inside the students, that transformative moment that you didn't quite anticipate, but that's so gratifying when it happens. There's a craft to teaching in a guild-like sense, that there are skills and ways of preparing assignments and rubrics and so on that can be improved in the same way that one works at a craft. And then in terms of science, we have 50 years of scholarship of teaching and learning, research studies that tell us about what best practices are, and we want to embrace those too. So there's a desire for conversations amongst faculty about the art, the craft, the science of teaching, and how we can share ideas with each other. And then also strong desire emerged in the comments I've heard for ways to talk about how we can help students. And this is everything from how do I help students become better critical thinkers to how do I help that student who's struggling economically? How do I help that woman in my class who slept the night before in her car with her son and comes to my class with she and her son only having shared a tablespoon of peanut butter for breakfast? How is she going to be able to concentrate on her lesson? What do I do? How do I get her to resources? And of course, ultimately, all of these things are connected in that whatever we do in these areas is going to reflect itself in some way in the classroom and have an impact, we hope, beneficially on our students. So whether you connect these three with a circle or in a triangle, they all fuse together. So now, with these broad categories, what we'd like to do is come back to you and solicit your opinion about the ways in which you would like to have these discussions. They could be brown bag lunches. They could be workshops. Some of them could be open conversations. They can take place in different forms, and we're seeking more of your ideas about how that would happen. If you look on the podcast window that you're listening to this in, you'll see just above it to the left a little link that says 2 replies. And if you click on that, you can then leave your own reply. And we'd love you to use this forum to gather your thoughts. Of course, you can communicate in other ways as well. But we're eager to hear what you have to say and get your thoughts on what would bring you into these conversations. What can we do that would tempt you to show up and bring us to you, or you into the first floor of the library? But we'd love to reach out and talk with you about these things. So if you have any ideas about what would make that appealing to you and your colleagues, please let us know. Thank you, and we will see you at the next podcast.